Salvador Tineo in the pink and black Ginetta. Hello everybody, if you haven't watched this championship before, then we've got a variety of different cars, all to or approximating GT4 specification. Different manufacturers. Ginetta from Leeds in England with two different kinds of car in the field, G50 and the more advanced aerodynamically and slightly more powerful G55s. Silver car you see in the middle there is an Aston Martin Vantage V8, of which now more than 100 examples are racing around the world in GT racing, in GT3 and GT4. And straight in the middle of your shot, that is rain, and that is where the weather is coming from. So rain in the distance towards Bratislava, and not the too far remote distance either, and the wind blowing from that direction, from the west across the circuit here. You can see a couple of our Ginettas. In fact, that's all Ginettas, that shot. The G55, the more muscular, aggressive and bigger winged version of the car. There you can see that. With this Renault Megane leading the field and the KTM Crossbow, they'll be our front row starters. Second and final formation lap for row 4. Oliver Freimut on pole from Naomi Schiff. With a two-driver race, one driver qualifies for race 1 and starts it. One driver qualifies the car for race 2 and starts it. So she'll hand over halfway through to her Austrian teammate Reinhard Köffler. Half the field approximately are single driver entries and half are two driver entries. And for Reiter Engineering, Köffler and Schiff essentially doing a first race test for the team as opposed to independents who have raced it at the beginning of the season, customers of Reiter Engineering. So forming up behind the safety car in 2x2. Oliver Freimut on pole in the Megane, the white car with the blue highlights. And Naomi Schiff, the black KTM alongside. Then the pink car of Salvador Arroyo with Marko Kalistangas from Finland lining up 4th place. That car didn't last long enough for him to get a drive in race 1 as they go green down to the first corner. It's Oliver Freimut on the inside defending from Salvador Arroyo, and around the outside Naomi Schiff being cautious and wisely so. Again, everything to lose and nothing to gain in the first corner. She drops down into 5th place. It is still 2x2 on the inside as they go 3 wide. Our two Ginettas. Salvador Arroyo has the lead, and with the grey lower part, that's Kalistangas. He gets shuffled down to 4th place as through in the Aston Martin goes Will Moore. Will Moore raced in the season opener in Paul Ricard with a teammate. Matt Nicol-Jones not here this weekend. Will Moore also raced in GT4 Academy Motorsport Aston Martin at Le Mans last week in the All Aston support race to Le Mans 24 Hours. And he's racing in British GT as well in the coming weeks. So he's having a busy season. And there is the KTM Crossbow. First full race for the Reiter Engineering team. Some of their customers have been out racing the cars in Supercar Challenge, in the Benelux Championships in Zolder and more recently in Spa. But for Reiter Engineering themselves, it's the first chance to run the car in race trim. With Salvador Arroyo leading the race. Will Moore in 2nd place now. He's got in front of Oliver Freimut. The KTM Crossbow making up in cornering grip what it has been hampered with in terms of power. Balance of performance here to rein in some of the more powerful cars, of which the Aston Martin 360 horsepower and the Ginetta G55 380. Nominally the most powerful, but they have been reined in by added weight. And the KTM, for instance, has a rev limit of 5,500 RPM, whereas normally it could rev up to about 8. So that's to give the smaller, lighter and less powerful G50s a bit more of a go. The KTM Crossbow only 335 or so horsepower. Oh, and drifting out very wide indeed is one of the G55s, and that is Tony Castillo. First lap of the race into turn 13, and he's out on the gravel, get off line here, and it is very dusty now after several off-track excursions. Will Moore, the race leader, on the racing line. The silver and black car has, beg your pardon, in 2nd place, under pressure from Oliver Freimut. It's the battle for 2nd place. And Salvador Arroyo qualified 3rd for both races, but won the first one from the white and blue number 24 Megane. Will Moore was in 4th place, but his mandatory pit stop was too short. He was handed an 11-second penalty. That didn't drop him down to 5th. He still stayed in 4th place on the result sheet, but he goes straight on under braking, as does Oliver Freimut. They out-fumble each other there at turn 3, straight off down the escape road. And that just hands a golden opportunity to their rivals to go by. Freimut with tyre marks all the way down the side of that McGann. Well, he's still on the brakes as Will Moore is having to turn in. Freimut overcooking it there. You come over a brow and drop down into turn 3, and you've got to be on the brakes before the brow. I think Freimut went in too deep. Well, Will Moore disengages there and rejoins. Looks as though we may well have a safety car situation, and that is the second off-track excursion, isn't it? I think we saw the yellow car of Tony Castillo getting out of the turn 13 gravel, so where has he gone off there? Is that turn 1? No notification of yellow flags out at the moment. The white Ginetta there, you just saw that is Luca Magnoni, and he is in front of Naomi Schiff at the moment. South African driver in 7th place in the black, in 8th place in the black KTM. However, with cars going off, two of the top 3 cars went off in turn 1, and that is, beg pardon, turn 3, that is turn 1, where Tony Castillo possibly has a legacy of going off at the penultimate corner, maybe gravel in the brakes. Gone straight on at turn 1. Gravel here is not tiny bits of gravel, it is big hefty stones. You get one of those wedged in the caliper, there's no chance it's going to shake itself loose. So across the line, Salvador Arroyo leads from Manuel Lozani in 2nd place. That is the red Ginetta. Slippery surface flags are out. There isn't a flag in motor racing that says you are now entering a gravel rally stage, but that's what it needs. Those 2 teammates from Nova Race, those 2 Ginetta G50s, both in the pits early in race 1. The one with the silver, with the grey, rather, lower portion of the front end, that never did return out on track, but the all-red one behind with the little white stripe, that never did. So Frederick Blomstead started it, did a handful of laps, really single digits laps, and Marco Kelly-Stangas, who is currently driving it, started the car from 4th place on the grid and is now in 3rd. So these red Ginettas, Kelly-Stangas didn't get to drive at all in race 1. Well, their mechanical woes have been sorted out. Javier Ibran, just between those 2 and the white Ginetta here of Luca Magnoni. Ibran in a G55, Magnoni in a G50 Ginetta. And Naomi Schiff in 6th place, Ed Moore 7th, Will Moore rather, 7th, where he's rejoined. And in 8th place is Ivo Tsonev. So Will Moore's got by him in the Aston Martin. And in the background, way over the back of the barriers, did see Oliver Freimut's car moving again. So whether he comes into the pits or not, we will try and keep an eye on. And away goes Tony Castillo. This is the move from Freimut down the inside. Well, he was never going to make the corner anyway. Yeah, that was very... What? Hang on a minute. The Aston got penalised. He was making the corner. The McGann was never going to stop. That is absolutely 100% the wrong decision. The McGann was never, ever going to make that corner. It just went straight through the braking area, straight across the nose of the Aston Martin, which only touched him as he turned in. That was an unavoidable accident. Well, as we often say, as the battle for second heats up, down the inside goes Marco Kelly-Stangas, the Finn taking the spot away from his teammate. So Manuel Lasagni, Ed Moore comes in to serve a drive-through. Beg your pardon, Will Moore comes in to serve a drive-through. And a technical flag to car 24 with all that damage hanging off. I'm sure Oliver Freimut will be coming into the pit lane anyway. Well, when things go into the steward's room, I'm afraid, often they do enter a parallel universe. Not sure whether that was a stewarding decision or whether that came from the race director. Either way, I'm afraid there's no way you slice that where I see that as being the fault of the guy who was on the outside and had got his car stopped for the corner properly. The guy who shot up the inside and couldn't make the corner, he's the guy who should be serving the penalty for causing the accident. However, be that as it may, It's all sorted itself out further back. Salvador Arroyo still leading from Marco Calistangas now in the first, these two red Ginettas. Manuel Lasagni in the third place car. Naomi Schiff up to fourth in the KTM, ahead of Luca Magnoni, and right behind him is Javier Ibran. So Naomi Schiff now, where are we? 3 laps into the race. Got the measure of the tyres, the brakes, got everything heated up nicely, and really starting to lean on the KTM. She's had a very varied racing career over the last few years. Picked up by Reiter Engineering as a test and development driver. And that hopefully will see her with a bit more of a consistent programme developing as Reiter put their expertise into developing and selling the KTM Crossbow in GT4 spec. Well, there's Oliver Freymouth. He clearly has decided that having a door that's partially attached is fine by him. Probably not affecting the car's handling too much, might be a bit drafty. Of course, what Race Control are worried about is that the door falls off. As you can see, not the most hugely attached piece of bodywork. The technical flag will be the black and orange flag. And if he doesn't respond to that by coming into the pits, they have the option of black flagging him and excluding him from the race. On safety grounds, you'd have to say that might be a sensible option. Luca Magnoni in the white Ginetta now in 5th place, ahead of Javier Ibran. And fastest lap of the race for the South African in 4th spot and closing on the leaders, Naomi Schiff. 3rd fastest in qualifying, finished 3rd in race 1, behind Oliver Freymouth, who put his Megane into the gravel, and it was really only the huge amount of rocks that were being machine gunned up against the front of the KTM through several corners that allowed him to hang on to 2nd place. Otherwise, pretty sure Naomi Schiff would have managed to get through. As it is, she's starting to reel in the G50s in front of her, and with the pace that she's now got and is showing, then it's only a matter of time. Half a second quicker in the first sector of the lap alone than the car in front, Manuel Lasagni. KTM Crossbow really using all of its speed in the second element. 2 seconds quicker in sector 2 on the last lap than Lasagni. 2 seconds in sector 2, not on the whole lap. And the KTM now with the Ginetta very firmly in its sights. Manuel Lasagni been racing that car for a good while, raced it all last year. It's the KTM Crossbow, brand new car this season. Looking down the inside here into turn 1, he's going to risk running across all of that gravel, which will reduce the grip and increase the percentage of chance of picking up a puncture. Naomi Schiff now is going to have to choose her overtaking position. She'll want to be way out to driver's left here, turning into the fast right-hander at turn 2, then try and get a run on the Ginetta over the brow and into the braking area down at turn 3. She's not going to be quite close enough here. The pressure is definitely on Manuel Lasagni. And the Italian, 35-year-old, sharing with 54-year-old Roberto Gentili, will want to keep the car A, in a good position, but B, in as good a nick as he can. It's a 50-minute race. Pit lane window will be open for 10 minutes right in the middle, from minute 20 to minute 30 of the race. So then there are 30 minutes left. Pit lane window will open. Compulsory pit stop, and a little lock up there from Lasagni under pressure. And it's in this element of the track that the KTM really is so much more in its element. High speed stuff, the aerodynamics on the car, pretty sophisticated looking, as you can see, in that closed cockpit of the KTM GT4 as opposed to the open cockpit of the normal Crossbow. certainly reducing drag dramatically. And those Mickey Mouse ears air scoops, very reminiscent of something like a Lotus 47, the Lotus Europa. Or was that the 49? One of those. Towing down the back straight, closing in on the Ginetta, piling on the pressure, forcing Lasagni onto the defensive. Shift now all over the back of him through that long final corner. This is where the 3.5 litre V6 of the Ginetta will have its head a little onto the straight, but Naomi Schiff with her 2 litre TSFI Audi engine in the slipstream, losing not very much down the straight, but just enough, I think, without too many revs to play with. Does she get down the inside? She does. Has she got the grip on the gravel to get through? She has, up to 3rd place. So a change there. And a warning from the race control for Marco Kilistangas to respect the track limits. Well, he's the man in front in 2nd place at the moment as Naomi Schiff dives through for 3rd position. So the crossbow moves up to 3rd. Big lock up there from our race leader, Salvador Arroyo. Is down into turn 3. There's your 1, 2, 3, 4, all in the same shot. Wow. That's a big lock-up from Salvador Arroyo. Well, that's not going to do his tyres many favours. Still 35 minutes of the race to go. He's in 2nd place into the closing stages of race 1, when the Megane of Oliver Freimut that was leading went off the road. At that stage, the Megane not really under close scrutiny from behind, although he was under pressure as the drivers behind him were lapping quicker. Not much, but enough. And Salvador Arroyo ended up with the race falling very nicely into his lap, didn't make any mistakes, and took victory. However, mistakes coming from Arroyo. And last time round, Arroyo 2 minutes 14.1. Helis Takanga in 2nd place, 2:13.9. And Naomi Schiff 2:14.6, getting by Manuel Lasagni. However, best lap of the race at the moment, fastest laps are still for Arroyo and Helis Takangas. Naomi Schiff setting the fastest race lap of all, though, 2 minute 12.2, so the pace definitely there in the KTM early in this race run. Well, race 1 here, round 3 of the championship, was the first full race run that the Reiter Engineering team have done with this car. It's an abrasive circuit here, it really wears the tyres hard, not because the surface is especially abrasive, but because so many changes of direction. Naomi Schiff on the last lap, fastest final sector of all, 2:13.2 compared to leader Arroyo's 2:14.8, so that's 1.6 seconds quicker than the pink car at the front of the queue. She was also 0.6 quicker than Helis Takangas in the red Ginetta, who lies in 2nd place. So the KTM that led the first part of race 1 is closing in on the top 2 here in race 2. Well, this is underlying her qualifying performance. In the 2nd qualifying session, she set a 2 minute 12.39. She is under that time now in race trim on full tanks, if you don't mind. And that just is a little bit more familiarity with the car, a little bit of tweaking with the setup perhaps from the Reiter Engineering team, and a little bit more familiarity with the circuit for Naomi Schiff, who's not raced here before. Not many of the drivers have. Nevertheless, she is now really in the 2nd place car, hand over fist. Response from the top 2, in fact in the first sector of the lap. Naomi Schiff still closing the gap in the last couple of laps on our race leaders. Salvador Arroyo, our race 1 winner, currently leading the race in his Ginetta G50. Again, racing that car last year. Different team, but same basic vehicle. fact, Salvador's car, I think, is still in the race now. No, can't come in yet. Pit window is not open. Naomi Schiff there, I think, with a mistaken message. She looked to be slowing in the final corner. I think she thought the pit window was open. It is not yet. 31 minutes and 55 seconds. She need to do another lap. Salvador Arroyo's car being driven in this race by Ivo Tsonev. We saw there Naomi Schiff was definitely thinking box this lap, but it was not box this lap. Well, that's a disappointment for the team, I'm afraid. She drops from third to fourth. Radio miscommunication. It was battery problems as well that really cost them their lead in race one. Her co-driver Reinhard Koerfler, the Austrian, was 7 and change seconds in front when he came into the pit lane, but they lost more than 10 seconds trying to restart the car during a pit stop. Naomi fired it up while she was in the car, and they said, no, turn it off. And then when the pit stop was finished to fire the car up, it wouldn't start, so they had to put in the external slave battery and jump start it. That's all perfectly within the regulations. However, they will be very well prepared this time, I think, should the same happen. So 45 seconds till the pit window opens. I think the leader, Salvador Arroyo, will have to go round again, but Naomi Schiff might get the opportunity to come in this lap. She's trying to work her way past Marco Kilistangas. I beg your pardon, Marco Kilistangas is still in second, of course. This is Manuel Asani, who's the third place car, that red Ginetta. And Naomi nearly caught Kilistangas, but now some 4 seconds behind when the gap was probably a little over 3/4 of a second. So that misheard radio call, I'm afraid, has cost. Pit window is open now, so she could come in this lap and hand the car over to her 30-year-old teammate. Does she come in? Yes, she does. First to pit will be 21-year-old South African born, or South African raised driver Naomi Schiff. Now lives back in Belgium, speaks French, and knows both of our Dutch World Touring Car drivers very well, Jaap van Laken and Nicky Katsberg. Here you can see a hastily patched up Megane. This is the car of Ivo Tsonev and Simeon Ivanov he's going by. That was Salvador Arroyo's car last year. Naomi Schiff out of the car already. Seat insert is out. And seat insert going in for her teammate Reinhard Koerfler. Looking for another podium finish. They were third in race one. There's your race leader, Salvador Arroyo. He now has the opportunity to stop pretty much when he wants. When that will be remains to be seen. Pit window is open for another 8 minutes and 36 seconds, which will give them another 2 laps or so in which they could stop. Quite when he does, entirely up to him. So busy pit lane now. Naomi Schiff and Reinhard Koerfler are in. Will Moore in the Aston Martin. Simeon Ivanov taking over the pale blue car, and Oliver Freimut making his regulation stop. Out goes the crossbow. So the KTM first to pit and first to leave the pit, and the pit stop regulations demand a minute stationary plus the time it takes to go through the pit lane. If you leave early, then you will have time added to your race. So Salvador Arroyo, the race leader, comes in now, and behind him, across the line, goes Marco Kilistangas. And there is Will Moore in the Aston Martin, who served a penalty earlier on. And that is your race leader, Marco Kilistangas, in the number 15 Ginetta. Well, blue flags will be waving at Will Moore. And may well decide he's going to ignore them. Manuel Lasagni in second place. Second of the Nova race Ginettas. Wilmore allows the Ginetta to go by, knowing he is a lap down, having served a penalty, which I'm afraid I don't entirely agree with. When I say entirely, I mean remotely. But it is what it is. Wilmore now has to get on and make the best of it, and to try and garner as many points as he can from this race. Fourth in race 1. And currently shown as 7th in race 2, and it's probably not going to get much better. And Helis de Cangas there goes deep in under braking, runs out wide onto the dust, and is now holding up Wilmore. So the blue flag should in fact be waved at the race leader now. Salvador Arroyo coming out of pit lane in his pink and black Ginetta. And he will rejoin the race. Have to wait and see who's around him, who's he in front of. Well, nobody close behind him at all. That's slightly worrying for the KTM team. Unless they're in front of him somehow after the pit stop, I have to say that's unlikely. However, the KTM is on track and has just set the fastest final sector of all. That is the lap out of the pits for the Crossbow in the hands of Reinhard Koerfler. In comes the new race leader, Marco Helis de Cangas, will hand over the number 15 Ginetta to Fredrik Blomstedt. Well, Helis de Cangas didn't get to drive in race 1, gets to lead in race 2. That was a good effort from him, and staying out, and now in the lead, Manuel Lasagni. That car too delayed by technical woes in race 1. They did finish, but a couple of laps down. Now he is in the lead of the race as in comes the white G50. That is Luca Magnoni. Magnoni driving on his own this weekend. Last within the 24 hours of Barcelona he's had, raced Ginettas, raced in the GT4 Championship last year with the car. In the number 7 car, Manuel Lasagni, 35-year-old Italian, also raced in the GT4 series last year with the cars, sharing with Roberto Gentili. Lasagni's done quite a lot of GT4 racing recently. 2011 he was runner-up in the Italian GT4 Championship. Raced in the Ginetta Cup as well. And his teammate Roberto Gentili raced Clios, raced Seats in the Euro Cup and in the Italian Championship. Also raced in the Dubai 24 Hours at the beginning of the year. So Roberto Gentili finding time with his business obligations to get a little bit more racing in, and that is your 1-2, and look how close they are. So Fredrik Blomstedt comes out right behind Salvador Arroyo. And fastest race lap, 2:11.94 now from Reinhard Koerfler. And that is the second fastest lap that we've seen from that car. Fastest in qualifying, 2:10.2 from Koerfler. I think he may get close to that in his pursuit of the leaders. These two Ginettas will be the race leaders into the closing stages once all the other pit stops have run through. Luca Magnoni still to pit. Manuel Lasagni rather still to pit. Luca Magnoni has come in, so too has Javier Ibran, and that then is Manuel Lasagni in the pits. That is our final man who owed us a pit stop. Lasagni driving on his own, doesn't have to get out, run round and redo his belts, although I do think there's still some mileage in that. He'll just sit there and stew, getting hotter and hotter before he rejoins the track. And for these two guys, it's about trying to make sure that this lap is quicker than any of the laps that he did while they were in the pits. to wait and see now exactly when everybody has crossed the line one more time where the KTM crossbows, you can see it in the background, so it is, ooh, that's a long way behind the Ginettas. And I think that Reinhard Koerfler will end up probably in 4th place after the pit stops. See if we can see a gap. I reckon he is 8 seconds probably behind. Timing screen not telling us yet. But as they come across the line, Salvador Arroyo leads, and it is a Ginetta 1-2-3. Arroyo leads from Blomstedt in 2nd, and coming out you can see the red car of Roberto Gentili. He's the one with the grey lower part, still in primer, and 4th is the KTM crossbow of Reinhard Koerfler, who goes quicker again, 2:11.5. Leaders are doing 12s and 13s and 14s. He's into the 11s. And as the fuel load lightens, that car should get quicker. It'll be hyper light on its tyres. Ginettas aren't exactly brutal on their tyres. Saw the rear drive G50 sliding around a lot in the tight and twisty stuff. Front engine, rear wheel drive these G50s with that 3.5 litre Ford V6 up front. The mid-engine layout of the KTM crossbow should out with a little better balance and a little less tyre wear. Luca Magnoni back out of the pits in 5th position ahead of Javier Ibran and Will Moore. And then Simeon Ivanov in the all-Bulgarian crude car in 8th place. Oliver Freimut in 9th spot. Freimut is at least a lap down though. So Fredrik Blomstedt behind Salvador Arroyo, and the pink car out front, our race 1 winner. And on my time sheet, where did the Scandinavian duo finish? They didn't, of course, finish in race 1 because the car not classified. They only managed to do 4 laps in total before their car cried enough. So Fredrik Blomstedt brought it into the pits now. Blomstedt is out front, chasing the race leader. And the KTM's already up to 3rd. Reinhard Koerfler absolutely flying. Again, pink sectors all the way across the lap. First sector, he was a second quicker than the 3 Ginettas in front of him. Second sector, he was 3 seconds quicker than Roberto Gentili, despite having to go by him. And in the 3rd sector, he is 3/10 quicker than the cars in front. At 2:11.03, the gap now to the leader down to 7.3 seconds. Drive-through penalty for the Aston Martin of Will Moore for abusing the track limits. Well, he will have been reported for having all 4 wheels outside the white line on numerous occasions, and that is a corner, turn 2, where it is very frequently the case. The Aston Martin, a bigger, heavier car than the KTM crossbow or the Ginettas. Will Moore comes down pit road for his 2nd penalty. That, I'm afraid, is probably going to drop him right to the tail of the field. Maybe not behind Oliver Freimut. Maybe not behind Simeon Ivanov either. However, rules out any chance of the Aston Martin being a competitive proposition for the rest of the race. He fires the car out of pit lane at full noise as we watch the KTM crossbow of Reinhard Koerfler, for the first time on this lap, not setting a fastest sector of the race. In fact, not even as quick as his own best sector. However, it doesn't have to be. It only has to be better than the cars in front with 17 3/4 minutes to go, 7 seconds to make up. Still a big ask as the cars in front work their tyres. Maybe the KTM will find more speed in hand. Fastest second sector of the race for the KTM driver, Reinhard Koerfler, 1:02.8. The leader, 1:05.5. The second placed Ginetta, 1:04.9. So how nimble is this KTM crossbow and the slow and medium speed stuff in Sector 2. Sector 2 takes you from turn 3 to turn 12 inclusively of this 14-corner track. It's a massive slice of time, and he is comprehensively quicker than the cars in front. 2:10.821. His qualifying pole lap for race 1 was a 2:10.286, so he's still got 6 tenths to find to go faster than pole. And although his tyres will be considerably more worn than they were when he was going for pole in qualifying 1 yesterday afternoon, I wouldn't mind betting that he's going to get close, because he's got targets visible in front of him. I think he thinks perhaps this racetrack owes this car a win. I'm not entirely sure that he's wrong either. So 2:10.82 last time round, and on that lap alone 3 seconds quicker than the car in front and than the leader. And in fact, half a second quicker than the leader is the red Ginetta of Fredrik Blomstedt. So the top 3 are closing up with just under 16 minutes to go. You can end up with a real grandstand finish here. Third is catching second, second is catching first. First seems to be running out of tyre. Salvador Arroyo, the race leader, bringing the lap time down into the 14s again last time round, but he's done a couple of 2-minute 15 laps recently, which have allowed these cars to close in significantly. 2 laps ago, Reinhard Koerfler was 7.4 seconds behind the leader. 3/4 of a lap ago, it was 4.3. Across the lap, if he hasn't sliced another second out of it, or 2, or possibly even 3, I will be astonished. Now he's going to start to run slightly into the turbulent air of the car behind. That might have a determining factor on when he catches. As they come on to the start-finish straight at the end of lap 15, Salvador Arroyo leads by 2.5 seconds, and Reinhard Koerfler 9 tenths behind Fredrik Blomstedt in that red Ginetta G50. So the gap first to third is 2.5 plus 0.9, which is 3.4. Penalty for car number 15, and that is Fredrik Blomstedt. 5 seconds will be added to his time, so he is effectively in third place already, behind Reinhard Koerfler. However, Koerfler will have to get by him to get to the leader, and that may not be the work of a moment. He sends it early into turn 3, shows his nose, gets the inside line, and look at the grip that the KTM Crossbow had on the inside. Nice, clean move. 33 is Javier Ibran. 60 seconds, or is that 0.6? 0.6 of a second? Or, yeah, 0.6 seconds. And the number 15 car, Freddie Blomstedt, with 5.15, and car number 7, Roberto Gentili, with 3.42 seconds added to their time. So both Nova Race, one of the Nova Race cars, and Javier Ibran, who's been run by Buggy Experience, too short in the pit lane. So we had 3 cars penalised for 2 short pit stops in race 1. We have 3 cars penalised for 2 short pit stops in race 2. Freddie Blomstedt didn't get penalised because their car didn't make it that far in race 1. So it's a different car from the Nova Race team that got penalised, because I seem to think that Luca Magnoni and the Bulgarian crew car both got penalised in race 1. 13 minutes remaining and the clock is running down. Reinhard Koerfler in second place, and now within sniffing distance of Salvador Arroyo. He was 3.5 seconds behind at the line in third. He is now 0.77 behind in second. And that in 1 lap. Last lap round for the KTM, a 2 minute 11.4, the leader a 2 minute 14.1. Now what the championship has to avoid doing is allowing the KTM to run away with races. What it also has to avoid doing is penalising the KTM so much that on longer, faster tracks that don't necessarily play to its tight and twisty corner strengths, it is utterly uncompetitive. Next time out, they go to the Red Bull Ring at Spielberg in Austria, and that is a long, fast flowing Grand Prix circuit where the KTM's rev limit will definitely hurt it on the quick stuff. There's not enough hairpins and twisty stuff for it to be competitive all the way round. However, here it must make hay while the sun shines. Down the inside goes Reinhard Koerfler, catches Salvador Arroyo immediately and goes straight by him to take the lead of the race. And Arroyo comes right back up the inside, and he's got the power, he's got the horsepower with that 3.5 litre V6 Ford. Little bit more power and more revs to use it in. And this circuit, nominally the KTM, maybe 5 horsepower shy of the Ginetta, but with its rev range restricted to 5,500 RPM instead of what it would normally be, which is around 8. The KTM definitely fighting with one hand tied behind its back in the power stakes. And as they come here onto the straight down to the final couple of corners, see how it loses out in a straight line, and the red Ginetta is closing up. That means that if Reinhard Koerfler gets in front again, he's got to do it at the beginning of the twisty stuff and start to build an advantage that might survive the 2 long straights that make up the final sector of the track at the beginning of sector 1. Well, this is where the KTM's in its element, in the tight and twisty stuff. Tucks to the inside, grip to spare, and drives by Salvador Arroyo, and just runs a little out of road as they come to turn 10 and 11. Arroyo able to use the horse advantage